All right, hi BTC Prague. My name is Michelle and I'm so excited to be having the opportunity to talk to you all about self-custody. Now, before I dive deep into talking about self-custody, I do just want to say thank you everybody for coming here. This is my first speech here, so I'm excited and a little bit nervous, but I'm really ready to have some fun with you guys. Thank you. Thanks, guys. Now, before we dive deep into what self-custody is and why it's important, I do have a question that I'd like you to think about and to kind of reflect on as I talk through this presentation. So what does the journey of self-custody look like for the everyday person? Now, wherever you are in your journey for self-custody, whether it's at the start or the middle, it might look a little bit different from person to person, right? Now, at Trezor Expert, which is the role that I've got, we have such a beautiful and wonderful window into the next generation of hardware wallet users. So we get to talk to new Trezor users and integrate them into the Trezor ecosystem. And we're talking to people from all over the world, from all walks of life. It's not just Bitcoin maximalists, and it's not just really hardcore tech heads who are jumping from one hardware wallet to the next. It is moms that are feeling a little bit scared, but they want to set something up long-term for their kids. It's teachers, lawyers, and small business owners that want to have a way to use crypto in a personal and professional setting. And even more so, it's a growing number of older generations, so that's going to be like our parents or our grandparents' age, who actively would like to learn about something new. And what all of these people have in common is that they want to learn how to have self-custody of their crypto. So I'd like to share a little bit about my own personal journey and to share this personal anecdote with you. Now, when I decided to learn about crypto, get into Bitcoin, I didn't come from the most technical background. I used to be a primary school teacher. So yes, that means I was working with kids all day long. I was in a classroom with them all day long. And most of the time I was thinking about how to make them independent, critical thinkers. So it's a very different space, right? Because the educational field, it is female dominated. So that means that it's very nurturing and it's rooted in pedagogy. So we're naturally taught how to help and guide people. The crypto space felt like jumping into a completely different universe. So the crypto space that I dived into, which was, online research, online articles, YouTube videos, it was very technical language. It was full of a lot of jargon or crypto-specific terminology. And to be honest, it was guided by a lot of male voices. So it felt like a very steep and scary learning curve. I see some people nodding, and I think that no matter where you are in the world, you can relate to how difficult that is. So I'd like to share with you how I got into crypto. So again, I started from zero. There was not much happening. It was just from the basic information I understood, okay, I need to start out with a hardware wallet. So what do? I got in touch with my friend. I knew that she owned crypto. And I asked her, hey, is a hardware wallet the right place to start? She said, yes. And I've got an old Trezor Model 1. You can use it. Here, just take it and go off and buy some crypto. So I wiped the wallet from her device, created a new wallet, bought some Bitcoin, and that was it. There was no big fancy setup or crazy technical background. But I made a lot of mistakes. So when I got my backup, not only did I not number the words because I didn't know the order was important, I also didn't check to make sure that the backup was correct. And finally, when I wrote down the 20 words, I folded it on a piece of paper. I put that paper in the book that I was reading, and then I put it in my bookcase. I have a lot of books as an ex-teacher, so you can imagine that now to this day, I don't even know where this piece of paper is. So yeah, those are my first blundering steps, full of mistakes, into self-custody. Now, let's take a second to pause and unpack what does self-custody actually mean. So self-custody means that you are in control because you are responsible for your own private keys and your private information. Now, what that looks like in practice is that you are responsible for signing transactions, verifying your addresses, and being responsible for the safety of your backup. So that means no bookcases for me. Now, a big difference between hardware wallets and exchanges is that it's not a custodial system. So a custodial system means that they are keeping part of your private key, so they have that information for your own safety. But what that means is that this system is then built on a promise, right? So with self-custody, that removes the need for that promise because there's no third party. There's no banks, there's no exchanges, there's no middleman. It's just you and your crypto, which is your responsibility. So I've come a long way since my experience with my Trezor Model 1. This is a classic moment where I can say, do as I say, not as I do. And part of my journey included diving back into the resources. So that meant finding resources that were actually more scaled to information what I needed, because a big mistake I made was that I spent more time trying to understand how a transaction gets approved on a blockchain and what a node is than I did basic backup safety. So I was very lucky and fortunate to be able to get in touch with one of my friends. His name is Sean. He works in Trezor. He's in the marketing department. Hey, Sean. And he helped me to restart my journey into self-custody. He was really generous with his time, and he would meet me at a cafe. We'd talk through what a hardware wallet is, how does it actually work, what my backup is, and actually why it's not safe to use a second-hand Trezor. The reason why it's not safe is because you can't be totally sure that somebody hasn't compromised the device or messed with its private keys. So I'm really grateful for Sean. Thank you so much for that one. And yeah, I mean, these were all really important lessons that I needed to learn. So there is that learning curve. Now, something that I find very meaningful about that time is that we'd meet up at a cafe, we would transparently share information, it was all peer-to-peer, it was collaborative, it was informative, and I think it really captures the spirit of this space and the Bitcoin philosophy. Now, when we're talking about that space, naturally, what becomes a critical component of this conversation is then open source. If you're planning to use tools to safeguard your private keys, you should then have the ability to inspect how those tools are working. So with transparency, so some hardware wallets offer firmware and companion software that is open source. What that means is that the code is publicly available for anyone in the community to inspect, to review, to check it out, and to clarify, to collaborate on, and to improve it. Now, what that transparency does, is it removes the need for blind trust, which is based off of a promise, and replaces it with verifiable trust. So if self-custody is all about control, then open source is what makes that control auditable and actionable. So earlier this year, I had a really interesting session with actually a group of people. There was 3 of them. They were probably in their mid 60s to early 70s. And they were very eclectic, very chatty. We got to talking, and they were telling me how they remember when credit cards first came onto the scene. They remember how people were very skeptical and apprehensive that this piece of plastic would be anything valuable or meaningful later. They remember people asking, yeah, this piece of plastic is not gonna catch on. Now, here they were, years later, in this session with me, learning about how to self-custody their crypto. And what I think is so meaningful about this specific case, and why it probably stands out to me so much, is that they represent the type of thinkers that stay open to new ideas. Because in this space, at its heart, it's not just about adopting a new form of technology or a new type of currency. It's about returning power to the individual. So self-custody transforms itself from a journey of safety and into one about individual freedom. So let's talk more about the whys and the hows for self-custody. So when you choose self-custody or choose to go to the journey of self-custody, what that means is that you are in control because you are having access to your private keys and to your private information. As long as you have not compromised your safety or the integrity of your private information, then you know that your assets will not just disappear or be frozen. Exchanges are a place where a lot of people start out. I get it, but they come with their own set of risks. One of them being that they can go under without any predictability, and you can't predict that one. Now, when you go through the journey of self-custody, again, what it does is it removes that reliance on the third-party person. So when you understand how everything works and you know you're fully informed, it's not just about safety, it's about capability. You are then more capable to make decisions with confidence and with clarity. Now, I'd like to guide you through 4 tips that I think are helpful for you to get started on your journey of self-custody. They're very connected to my own experiences as a Trezor expert. So for the first tip, it's to really understand your basics, to really know your foundational knowledge. What is a backup? Why is it important? How do I keep it safe? I've had people come on a call with me and they're like, okay, I'm ready to pick my 12 words. Should I pick 20? Should I pick 12? What do you think? And that's not how a backup works. You don't pick the words because they're cryptographically tied to your private key. The second tip is understanding that you can take your time with your foundational knowledge. It's not about rushing things. It's about making sure that you understand what you're doing. So people come onto a session with me, their wallet is already made, they're ready. They're like, Michelle, I'm ready to make this transaction, let's go. The first thing I have them do is check their backup. And during that process, we find mistakes. They've spelled a word wrong. They missed a word completely. Or even a bigger case that really stands out in my mind is that he couldn't read his own handwriting. So then we have to wipe the device and start again. So it's really understanding that it's not about rushing off of an exchange. It's about understanding how you can access your crypto long term. The third step is understanding what information should be staying private. So I've had long-term hardware wallet users pop onto a session and they proudly show me that they've kept their backup very secure with a password-protected note on their computer. And I have to be the one to tell them that that's actually a compromised backup. That is not safe. So in our ecosystem, we say that the backup needs to be hard copies only. It can be physical copies, that's like, I don't know, stainless steel plates or whatever you want to do to engrave it. But it's about making sure that there's no digital copies whatsoever. And then the fourth and final tip is to actually understand, what does self-custody mean? What does it mean when I say to you that there's no middleman? So with whatever hardware wallet you decide to go for, that company of the hardware wallet cannot help you regain access to your account if you've lost your private information. So for example, some of the tickets that we are addressing are people coming to us saying, hey, I've lost access to my backup, what do I do? And the only tips that we can share them are practical ones. Memory tricks to try to find where the paper is, or comparing it to the standardized list to see maybe you've missed a word or maybe you made a mistake with your spelling. And while those are the most meaningful ones to try to help solve, they're also a powerful reminder that self-custody is about autonomy and individual responsibility. So I think that this naturally brings me back to the original question and the theme that I've got here, which is, what does the journey of self-custody look like for the everyday person? Now, if anybody wants to share their own experiences, I'm more than happy to open the floor up to people that want to talk about their experiences, but there's also absolutely no pressure whatsoever.
Hi, thank you. So My name is Francesco, and I wanted to ask you. I don't know if you specified that. If I missed it, what is the best practice? Because if you leave the seed phrase in a piece of paper somewhere at home and someone finds it, you're gone. Funds are gone. So what is the best practice with that? Because I have it. I have found my own way. I added other words which are not like to confuse, so they are 100 instead of being 24. And I scrambled the order, and there is a methodology to find the 24 phrase. But they told me this is wrong. But I don't know a better way of making sure that if someone finds that piece of paper, they don't drain my funds. Do you have an answer for that?
Awesome. So that's a really good question. That question was about backup safety and tips for how to do some best security. So just to kind of preface, my general approach for security is that I describe it as fashion, right? So you have your basics, you got your shirt and your tops, everyone wears those, but the slight accents are going to be a little bit different based on your personal preferences and what makes you feel the most safe. Now, a general rule of thumb that I offer is that when it comes to backup safety, having 2 or 3 versions of your backup stored in secure locations that make sense to you is a good safe step because 1, you don't use the backup every single day. This is something you use 5, 10, or 20 years down the line when you've broken your device or misplaced it. So having a long-term contingency plan allows you to have long-term planning for future access. It also would be a benefit for you to maybe have a secondary location that you store the backup in, or some sort of element-proof container or thing that you engrave it on, for example, because, wherever in the world you might be based, you don't know what kind of environmental things can happen. God forbid it, of course. Yeah? Any other questions? Awesome. So I guess to answer my own question, I'll just say that I think self-custody looks like learning, it looks like collaborating, and it also looks like taking full ownership. Because when you choose to be an active participant in your self-custody journey, that means that your private keys, your private information is your responsibility. So please keep it safe and protect it well. Thank you.